Hey, my name's Shanshan. I sell art on shanshan.co. Today we're going to review Strays. So it's a film by Josh Greenbaum. The time is 1 hour and 33 minutes. So right at the sweet spot, I think, is great for a lot of films, which is 1 hour and a half. A lot of modern day films will go to 2 hours and a half, 3 hours, like Oppenheimer. I just felt like that was like really long and by the same time not exactly succinct kind of film. This is a classic film that just kind of comes together, all the great parts, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and I don't know, it just comes together as a classic film formula, I would say. You have Will Ferrell plays Reggie, Jamie Foxx plays Bug, Isla Fisher plays Maggie, Randall Park plays Hunter, Will Forte plays Doug, the evil owner. So Reggie is a dog being abandoned by his owner Doug over and over again. He doesn't realize it. He thinks it's a game of just fetch, some advanced form of fetch. He runs into this other dog, Bug, and realizes, oh, Doug's not really a nice guy. And so he vows and plots his revenge on Doug. So it's a really kind of great adventure story for dogs, and obviously all the different things they've thrown in this film of what dogs do in the wild and different human activities they run into and how that affects the dogs. So that's a really fun, premise for the film. So there's a great funny dialogue around all the actors playing dogs in a spun and an adult way of humor, which is kind of interesting because it's not really well done. It's only done with Ted before, with the talking teddy bear. Now this is talking dogs, talking kind of adult way. So it's kind of fun in that aspect, as you don't think dogs in that aspect. Kind of dogs feel kind of like a really low IQ human. Really fun and friendly, but they just don't really know much or get much. But this is kind of a fun take on humans and dogs, and thinking of dogs as humans, how they would think if they were dogs. There's a great CGI effect in the film, which I don't think they probably could have done it in the early 2000s, but no one thought of it, which was you film the dogs and then you use CGI to make the mouth movements look like they're actually talking. So that was kind of fun. I think they did really good stuff there. They really didn't have much barking from the dogs, which I think they could have used more barking in the dogs to make them feel a little more real, because dogs would bark and wolf and all that and roll around, and you can parse it in between the human actors and the way the dogs talk, I think, a little bit more, but they didn't do it, so it was just kind of a choice. But I think that could have been a little better from that aspect. There's this great cycle of, Reggie getting abandoned by his owner and then feeling sorry for himself, and then he grows some confidence and decides to take revenge. So that's a great circular story of being with Doug and being loyal to Doug to being the enemies of Doug, right? So that's a great circle in the story. And there's obviously two side characters that are kind of flirty, but they don't know. And so they're kind of flirting and they get together in the end. So that's a great side plot that's classic in a lot of movies. There was a funny scene of the dogs eating mushrooms and how dogs trip, and then what happens to the consequence of the dog tripping. That was kind of a funny scene. I liked the exploration of the dogs on mushrooms. The fireworks scene with the dogs was pretty fun, I think, but probably a little sad in the aspect that probably the dogs were really terrorized. They might have limited it with fireworks that didn't have as much sound, so they probably didn't scare the dog as much. But even if you deaden the sound a little bit in the fireworks, which I don't know if they even exist, they might have fireworks like that, who knows, but they might have just used real fireworks and scared the hell out of these poor dogs. So they might have some animal rights activists kind of go after this film as like, hey, you tortured my dog with fireworks, so kind of a little bit of a thing, but a little bit of controversy there. But I think that adds to the film in the sense that it's kind of funny to see from a dog's perspective what they think of fireworks, like it's a war and all this stuff. So I thought that was really well shot. The only thing I think is a flaw in this film is kind of not sure on the audience. So usually dog movies are obviously kids, family movies. You take your kids to the movies and you gotta watch this dumb dog movie, right? This is kind of adult comedy for dogs. So it's kind of like adults don't usually go see animal movies unless they're with kids. Once they have their kids, they obviously go. But if they just are on a date with no kids, they probably wouldn't go see a dog movie, I don't think. So maybe this might fall between the cracks of where the audience is when you go to the movie, because you either take your kids or you go on a date night, or maybe you go by yourself. But most people don't go by themselves, so I'm not sure if this would actually work. Because a bunch of guys, it's kind of like guy humor, but are a bunch of guys going to see a dog movie? It might be. I think it'll do much better once it gets on streaming and then people recommend it. So I think this will probably be a better streaming movie than a cinema movie, but I liked it seeing in the cinema. There's also a story kind of come to circle for Bug. You find out behind the scenes that he was abandoned kind of by this little tiny girl and her family, and it was a terrible tragedy, and that's why he's so bitter. And at the end, there's this kind of reuniting with another little girl, and he kind of repairs his heart as far as his doggy love. And so there's a lot of good stories that come together and revolve and then come back full circle. So I think they did a really good thing from the story sense, a lot of good humor, and yeah, it's a fun. You're probably only going to see it once, maybe twice. If you'd like to see more reviews, you can subscribe below, and I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.